A couple episodes a while back, we talked about the original 1942 Cat People, which catapulted Val Lewton in charge of production at RKO. And after 1942 came 1943, when he kicked out some of his best. So we have I Walk with Zombie, Leopard Man, and then this one is the third one. We're kind of jumping ahead of the Val Lewton Chronicles, but this
We'll work our way back.
We'll come backwards eventually. But this one has been a hidden gem. It hasn't been available since 1940 till the 90s. Be able to see. And we're talking about one that kind of almost broke Val Lewton's career. And we're going to talk a little bit about Ghost Ship.
Oh, I love movies about ghosts. This is going to be great. Wait, you're telling me there's no freaking ghosts? Oh, God. Hi, everybody.
Spoiler
Welcome
alert.
back to the show, I guess. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for finding. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. Yes, we do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great content and some great opportunities to tell us what movies we can review for the future. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critics reviews as well as ours. And today we're talking about another of Val Lewton's low-budget hits from RKO of the mid-40s. It's Ghost Ship.
All right. Tom Merriam has joined the crew of the ship Altair as third officer. As the voyage begins, Captain Stone takes Tom under his tutelage and guidance, but as the trip continues, several crew member deaths lead Tom to question the captain's leadership, abilities, and sanity.
So after its initial screening in theaters, why was it difficult to find up to the 90s? Well, it got sued. Samuel R. Golding and Norbert Faulkner sued it because they considered plagiarism. And then went to court, and guess what? The judge says, you're right.
Yep.
And so based on a mutual deal, they were no longer to show the movie. They were going to strip it and then think until the copyright expired. And nobody checked out that nobody renewed the copyright. And I think Warner Brothers picked up the copyright that people are now able to see this movie.
Yeah, they had to pay additional money to get the rights to their own film. In so many words. And there's been a lot of questions about the validity of that because it sounds like the background of the film is very much that Val Lewton, the original Roger Corman, if you will, was told, we have a ship, a set, we need a movie. And he's like, okay. And so he got a ship movie put together. You know, it's like, there doesn't seem to be that much forethought into how the film was going to be made. It seems like he had an idea for a story already, and then he was told, I have a ship set, and so he worked that screenplay into being a ship set movie. You know?
Right. And if we talk a little bit more, if you want to, go back to Cat People, because we talked a little bit about the origins of Val Lewton and in charge of everything. But I understand the priority for Val Lewton was low budget films, high production, get the B movies, sell them as A, right?
Yeah.
With a happy ending, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was kind of how he worked in Richard Dix, who plays Captain Will Stone in the film, of course, is that he had a contract to do so many B pictures, and he kind of picked up this role because he wanted one more notch done so he could get out of his contract.
Richard Dick got famous for being in RKO's Best Picture, Cimarron.
Yeah.
Cimarron. He was in that movie. He is also in the 1927 movie The Quarterback, as a quarterback, of course. If you haven't checked that out, it's kind of a funny sports movie. Before there was really high-end sports movies, 1920s. That he got a big star in, but that one. His son Robert Dix is in The Forbidden Planet.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Robert Dix is in that. Yeah. It did get accolades for, I think, cinematography, right? If I remember, Nicholas Muscuraca.
Yeah, Musaraka, from Out of the Past.
Yes.
Out of the Past fame. He also did Pacific Liner, the other film that featured the ship set. So he kind of just hung around for another movie.
And then you have the supporting role, Skeleton Nags, he's got the very scarry face.
Oh, okay.
And
did he play the mute?
The mute.
Yeah,
In
okay.
this movie, he was a kind of a silent, not really a silent star, but he was a character actor. He was featured in a lot of different movies. He just had that recognizable face throughout all movies.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to understand.
Kind of like the Clint Howard of his time, where it's just like, oh, hey.
Yeah, there he is. There he is, yeah. And it's kind of a sad kind of a thing because he died of alcoholism at like age 40.
That's too bad, yeah.
Right, yeah. So, and then you have the director, Mark Robeson, who edited Cat People, and then Val Lewton liked how Mark edited Cat People, well, here's a movie you can direct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he went as far as to eventually directing films like Valley of the Dolls. He also did my fourth favorite film from our series on disaster movies. He did Earthquake.
Oh,
So,
crap.
gosh,
yeah.
he was around for a good number
That's
of
right,
decades.
because we talked about this on Cat People. He had that whole line. Yeah. So you have a lot of people that we recognize from the 30s coming in and just doing a quick movie.
Yep.
And it's on set. It's very obviously on set. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's something special about the 1930s and 40s when they had sets, because you knew they were sets. And that didn't take anything away from it. It's kind of like how, when we talked about King Kong, more often than not, you're fully aware that they're on a set. But it doesn't matter because of the magic of the movie making process. The actors sell the set. And I think that's what's happening here.
And so, spoiler, there is no ghost on this ghost show.
I'm so pissed. I got over it. Just took
But
me
it's a line of dialogue that I think Richard Dick says. It's like the ghost on this ship is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Whoop-dee-doo.
there's a great reviewer I read that says there's a lot of heavy connotations of Christianity in this movie. And it's like, where? And they cited all these examples of, believing in faith and trust and all this stuff. And I don't really get that point of view, but people both from Val Lewton's other things that he kind of overlay Christian themes in his movies, like Chris says he does. You don't really, unless you're really looking for
kind of part of that upbringing, part of that, birthing into the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways people have viewed. It's funny because, of course, there's that 50-year period where the film was gone. But then when it was reissued in the 90s, and you could finally catch it here and there, I think it was on a horror pack of like 10 Val Lewton horror films back in 2005. And so then it rebirthed it again, and people were talking about it again. I think right around that time was when people started discussing the homoeroticism in the film.
There's very few female cast members in this.
But this is also a unique film in that most films of the time, like 90% of them, it was like, what saves you in this world is the love of a good woman. And this film doesn't confront that at all. So it does kind of stand apart from that. I don't know if I buy the veiled homosexuality thing. I don't really
either.
Get that.
I mean, we understand him in like the big combo or something. But I don't see that in this, other than there's not a lot of female cast members. It's a ship.
Yeah, it makes sense at the time. This isn't King Kong, as I mentioned before. We're not hiring an actress to come on our ship. Right. It's just not one of those things you would deem necessary if you're on a film set for that long.
Yeah, I'll get into I'll talk a little more themes and concepts and all this stuff when we get to my review. But overall, understand that this is a quick make a buck kind of thing, and that's why he's hired to do.
Yeah,
make these stories quick and cheap. Understand, psychological horror films like this wasn't really popular yet. You don't get a lot more until the 50s, or even when Hitchcock with the 60s. And this is a little more a psychological thriller than anything else. It's not that foreboding, I Walk with Zombie or something like that.
The importance of a B picture, too, is kind of, no one came to the theater to see the B picture, but we want them to stay long enough to go get some more food or stick around a little bit longer.
It is a fast movie.
And what I appreciate about that, you guys are always going to make fun of me for saying this, but I love a movie that clocks in at 70 minutes.
This is 70 minutes.
And it just feels like it's moving the entire time. This is all killer, no filler the whole time through. And I do appreciate that because we are in the era of 3-hour movies right now, and it drives me up the wall. Yeah. So,
well, yeah, overall, I think it's a hard conversation to have because nobody really knew this existed.
Yeah, that's, I think, the most fascinating story about the film is having it disappear for 50 years. Like, at that point, you just have to be thankful someone had a copy of it. Yeah. When it finally was allowed to be released. Those are the kinds of films you lose, as the ones where it's been sitting on a shelf for so long. I'm amazed that the version that we saw, which was on a Blu-ray released by Warner Brothers, the version we saw looked fantastic.
I know. They really did they really cleaned it up.
Yeah, it's one of the best looking films from the time on a home video disc, and I'm just surprised because I just assumed it would be looking terrible after a 50-year absence.
I agree. I know. I was like ready for this print is fantastic. They cleaned it up a little bit. Yeah. All right. Well, up next, of course, is our review of the no-ghosts in the Ghost Ship. So I think overall with the theme, if you haven't seen it yet, I think it's chaos versus control. I think it's order versus disorder, and whether people in order can be disordered in their mind, but the chaos you have to contain it no matter what. Even the person in charge is off kilter. Great point is when the hook is off balance.
Yeah.
And you have this very, like, are they going to get hurt? Whatever.
Yeah,
and I think it's a great metaphor for the whole script of the movie.
Yeah.
Get it under control no matter what.
Yeah, we have kind of a dangerous element that's been added into this sequence that is creating chaos amongst the crew.
Right.
Yeah, I saw it as kind of a viewpoint in on failed leadership. In trusting the person that, blind leadership, blind faith in the person that you're trusting in to keep you alive. Because in many ways, the captain they sink or swim based on how safe their crew is. And what if you have a captain that isn't 100% mentally there?
Right. And the challenge is somebody who recognizes that, talks to the rest of the crew, hey, we have to do something. And then something devastating happens, he reports it, and the rest of the crew don't back him up.
Yeah.
And I think that's another point that Val Lewton's story is trying to emphasize is you could be a good person, but you'll fall in line with everybody else when the ship's made.
It's that mentality of kind of making sides, and I think part of that comes from life on a ship too. Is the mutiny of it all basically, and that you have to pick a side, and the failed side in those kinds of situations walk the plank in the pirate films, or in some cases end up chained to a bed here.
I think the most interesting part of the whole movie that's fantastic is when they're reeling in the chains, and he's sorting out the chains.
Well, and especially the chains into that big box, which, for those of you that don't know, the guy that dies in the chain box is Lawrence Tierney from Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, I didn't recognize that. Right.
This is his first film
Thank
role.
God
which
you do know.
It has to be really unfortunate that your first film role goes missing for 50 years.
And his back's towards us the whole point.
I didn't realize it was him. Someone else pointed out to me, and I went and looked back at the frame, and I was like, I guess it is him, isn't it? But I'm only recognizing him as old angry man from the 90s. So,
but it's the epitome of Val Lewton. Because it looks like nothing's happening, but everything's happening.
Yeah, he's always credited as being like, what was the phrase? The unseen and implied terror. And I don't know if that was an intentional choice or an I don't have money choice. Because Roger Corman often would do unseen or implied terror, and he didn't have any money. So it's like, I'm not sure if it was intentional or just like
but it's
kind
memorable
of
because I can hear how agonizing the murder is.
Yeah.
But I don't see it. But I just, from the couple seconds of him feeding the chains back in, I know how, obviously, to be crushed by him, it's got to hurt.
And my wife and I have been watching a lot of shows about yachting recently where those chains and those anchors, even on these smaller vessels, could kill you. Like, just in an instant because of the heaviness and the weight and the strain that they're all under. So having that sequence of him inside that box and having that door close and that sheer terror that hit my body and sent me shaking.
And you don't see anything.
You don't see anything at all.
No, it's kind of like Cat People, of her jumping in the pool, the cat's around. And,
yes. Yeah. Although at least Cat People has monsters in it. I'm never going to get past that, but I'll try.
So I think overall is, what you don't see was, let your mind fill in, and it's what could be mundane, could be the most devastating effect in turn, But he uses a lot of psychological, more than I think he gets credit for. This is heavy psychological.
Yep.
To the point where you see that, the guy's dead, and then type that in. What the heck?
Yeah. There's a few things like that where it's like, I'm not, his level of mental degradation as a captain, I feel like he still wasn't at the point where he'd make a simple mistake like that. Allowing the best friend of the
I don't buy it
there.
Right.
Yeah. There's elements in his burgeoning psychopathy that I don't know if I 100% buy. But given the narrative and how the film just cruises, you kind of forgive those elements. I really liked a lot of the smaller cast members in the film, too.
I do,
people that we didn't really spend a lot of time with. Edith Barrett as Ellen, who's kind of she is our female character in the film.
Right.
But she offers some interesting perspectives both to Stone and to Miriam, which I think
she complements the whole thing perfectly. Yeah.
I also like Edmund Glover, who played Sparks. He'd be the guy on the radio. I really appreciated what he was doing because he was kind of the moral compass for the characters. Kind of like, you're believing too much. You're not seeing who this really character is, and he's kind of like convincing people that everything's
Right. He was almost like a barometer. Like if he's chill, we're chill.
Yeah.
And once you take out the chill character, now we know it's all.
Yeah, because Tom is basically the boy who cried wolf to his parental figure, where he's like, no, I saw this happen. oh, still down, you're doing fine. You're just at sea too long. He doesn't realize he's correct about something,
Before we get to go, there's another famous scene that we haven't talked about yet. Is the guy who gets his appendix exploded? The captain's supposed to do surgery for it, and he chickens out. And his line of "I'm only fear of failure."
Yeah.
But the Russell guy does it himself.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of another point of the psychotic is also kind of a coward.
Yeah. Well, and I think that has something to do with the fact you're at sea. Yeah. This guy is going to die. Like, he's very likely going to die. It doesn't matter what you accomplish. So the fact that Tom steps in to take care of things, but he's also willing to relinquish he's willing to relinquish the gratitude that comes with saving his life, because the crew needs to believe in their captain, and having that be his downfall in a lot of ways leading towards the end of the film is such a tragic irony to that whole sequence.
I love how it's bookended by the guys out there.
Yeah.
On the street, the blind guy. It's bookended by him. That you're a sailor. How did you know? Well, you're right on the dock. I mean, chances are the person you're interacting with.
Did you hear the?
If you're cruising the docks, man, and you're going to be surprised. How'd you know it was a sailor?
Yeah.
You're in the vicinity of boats, man. Yeah. Overall, this is actually the first time I've seen it. There's a lot of good things that are attainable. They're rememberable for this. I think that's a pretty good movie.
It's a solid enough film. I'm sad it was missing for 50 years.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about Val Lewton's greatest, it's not going to come up as the top tier, but definitely it's nice to see that even back during this time, people like Val Lewton were doing the one for me, one for them thing. Because after Cat People, the studio desperately wanted that sequel. Now.
Curse of the Cat People.
Yeah, and then he went off and made The Seventh Victim, and then he made a film that the studio wanted, and then he went out and made this movie. Then he finally was like, okay, I'll make the Cat People thing. Like, it was kind of giving you I'm going to do one for me, and I'm going to do one for you. And that creates kind of a wider berth, because as much as the film is a Val Lewton production, Ghost Ship is nothing like Cat People.
No.
You don't really need subject matter at all.
And how the hell did Seventh Victim get made in the 40s about a satanic cult in Greenwich Village?
I mean, I Walked with a Zombie is pretty shocking for the time period. Like, just the amount, and part of it is because when you don't have budgets, no one cares what you do with
You fly under the radar.
Yeah.
Roger Corman do that. You just fly under the radar. And
you get your budget, you disappear for a few months, and you hand them a 90-minute movie. Or 70.
So, should we continue the conversation talking about Val Lewton films?
Yeah, I'm answering yes, we should. But do you think we should?
We're going to keep this recording just like Val Lewton, short and sweet.
Yeah, exactly. So let us know maybe what the next Val Lewton related project should be. Fingers crossed for
his masterpiece, Walk with Zombie. His Leopard Man, which is kind of under the radar.
Yeah, we've hinted at a lot of these, and we're definitely going to cover them all in time. But maybe if there's one you want us to get to next week, you could join that Patreon and let us know.
Yes.
Thank you for checking out our show, for checking out those links, for commenting, for liking, subscribing. We love you. We do.
Genuinely do.
Even if, there's no ghosts on the ship. But thank you guys for joining us. You can find all my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
If your appendix bursts, you're on your own, man. All right. Hey, you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts. And once again, thanks for watching.